podcast where we talk about fertility and natural family planning with our friends. Today's guests are Briana and Andy Wilson. Briana and Andy have been married 21 years and have 6 children, along with 2 in heaven. Both are cradle Catholics, come from big families, and attended Catholic schools in different areas. Andy spent the majority of his childhood in Fargo. He enlisted active duty Navy right after high school and retired with 20 years of service. He was a hospital corpsman, which led him to working with the Marine Corps providing medical care. He's currently at the tail end of a BSN nursing degree. Briana was raised in Iowa. After a year of local college and volunteer work, she enlisted for 5 years as a corpsman, a few months after Andy. She spent the last 13 years homeschooling, completing degrees in both human services and psychological care, volunteering, and keeping the house and children's activities afloat. Welcome, Andy and Briana.
Thank you.
How did you hear about natural family planning?
So we were actually selected by a priest at one of the churches we went to in Arizona, the base church, to be part of this planning committee for World Marriage Day. And we were with a couple other couples, and I always say they were an older couple, but I think they're younger than what we are now. And the wife, she actually started talking about John Paul II's theology of the body. And then she started talking about natural family planning. And
so, Briana, what was it that caught your attention?
I think just the beauty of, marriage in the Catholic Church. A lot of things in the Catholic Church we can't dive into, or we can't seek the bottom of it because it's so beautiful. And so knowing there was like more information about our Catholic faith and what God had planned for marriage and the beauty and the gift it is.
When you did learn about natural family planning, how did you find that natural family planning complemented your military lifestyle?
With the complementing of the military lifestyle, it was helpful because it made it easier for Brianna and I to communicate. And I was very busy at that time, and she was too, when she had just had our second child. So she was planning on getting out, but there's a, brand new baby at home. There's, another child who's 2.5 years old who needs her attention too. So for us to be able to communicate about different things, and there's an old saying that with natural family planning marriages, that if you can talk about mucus at the dinner table, you can talk about just about anything. So that made it pretty easy to communicate and everything like that.
Yeah, Andy noticed right away the communication shifted in a really great way. I think it also helped us with intimacy. I had exhausted all options with hormonal contraception. And also when I had learned around that time that hormonal contraception can cause abortifacient, I decided that just was not something I was okay with. And so we were looking more into like barrier methods and whatnot. And it seemed like that just wasn't what God had for us, that it pulled away from our intimacy. And then learning that we give ourselves fully to our spouse was really the draw of building that intimacy and understanding that, man, we really missed the mark. We were so far away from the joy and the beauty that God intended.
You are promoters for natural family planning. So why did you decide to become natural family planning promoters? And maybe can you give me some examples of what you do as a promoter?
We decided to become promoters because we found that how great natural family planning was for us in our faith journey and in our marriage and everything. And we wanted to express that greatness onto other people and let people know about how great it was. And then what we've done in the past is we've done a lot of like where we've gone to marriage prep classes and talked to them about natural family planning. They're already going to get the class where they actually have to take the class, or they have to learn it, but they need to know like what it is. And, when you're getting the class or you're being taught it by the instructors, there's not a lot of times that they're actually telling you about their journey through natural family planning. And with Brandon and I's situation, I think it's a little bit more unique because we've been on both sides of the fence where we've said, okay, we've tried this birth control thing, we've tried barrier methods, it didn't work for us. We've used these natural family planning, and it's like transformed our marriage. And we can talk about how difficult it was before and how it's changed our marriage and everything like that. So doing that, and just, part of the promotion is just when you talk to people who are frustrated with whether it's hormonal birth control or barrier methods, or they're frustrated in their marriage, you ask them like, well, what are you doing when it comes to this type of stuff? And you're just promoting, well, I do this.
Yeah, and for me, when I had learned about it, I felt like almost betrayed because as a Catholic growing up, you think, okay, this is the bread and butter of marriage. And it was so thrilling to see, as Andy and I are both, we both value education, and to see the science behind it, to see that first temperature rise and to identify different days, I was just like thrilled, absolutely thrilled. And knowing that I was fully giving myself to my spouse as he was to me, um, it was just a beautiful thing. And I feel like we haven't come down from that if we meet anybody that's struggling, we think of this is one of the foundational things of a strong marriage, and that it flows into so much more. So getting this kind of stuff right, and even understanding the process behind it, that we are a reflection on this earth of Christ's gift to us on the cross, of, a free gift and a faithful gift, a total gift. And um, I think it is so beautiful and so empowering that, we just really, I don't feel like we've gotten off that high. And now we have lots of children, and we think of our future could have been so different if we would have bought into the, get that vasectomy, or, get your uterus pulled out. Um, that wasn't, as we've grown in our marriage, we've seen couples that have done that, and it just doesn't lead down a great path. So we're so fortunate, and so we share this message any chance we get.
That's beautiful. It is a blessing for families, for couples, and it's such a well kept secret with even within the Catholic Church. It's we just want to get it out there, and to everybody, to young girls, get them started on learning about their fertility and being aware of it, and then if you get them off on that really strong footing, then that it's only good news from there on out, hopefully, right? When you learned natural family planning, what did you find to be easier than you expected, and maybe what was harder than you expected?
So I think the most challenging thing is just all the information and kind of like pulling it together and synthesizing that information, and really having a hand on it, because you were always like going back to the book, like, okay, I think I remember this part, because things so shifted so much, and then postpartum, um, and it is a cross to bear when you have those times of abstinence, when you choose, this isn't the time for a child. Um, that can be really like a burden to your marriage. It can also strengthen your marriage. Um, One thing that was easy is just like I said earlier, like that shift and seeing it work. It was just like, whoa, this is so beautiful. And having like a deeper respect for God's design of my body and all the awesome things it can do.
So, Andrew, what is your part in the day-to-day charting and living of the of natural family planning?
So we actually track it on the app on our phone. So what I do is I'm the only one with the app on the phone, so it's on me to make sure it gets charted and it gets charted correctly, that all that stuff happens. So she wears a armband that tracks her temperature throughout the night instead of having to do the thermometer in the morning. And so then I sync that to my phone.
But then the other thing he does, which is so important, is he reminds me to put the iron band on, because we've kind of gotten to where we have those certain days to get the temperature. So that's really helpful too. That's teamwork.
What would you say would be the ideal way for a woman or a young woman to learn about her fertility rather than, a couple months before she's getting married?
Yeah, actually, I've had this conversation with my oldest, which she's 21 today. Yay. We started off as just like get your calendar out and like mark day one and to help count it out and then kind of predicting that next cycle. Um, even fluctuations in moods or whatnot, just knowing, hey, this is normal. You're going to have days where you feel really down. Maybe your tummy doesn't feel right. You just kind of want to chill out for the day. You're going to have other days where you have lots of energy and so forth. And so now doing the program with my second child that's almost a teenager, um, in the book, I was so excited to see they said, puberty is going to bring, you're going to be smarter, you're going to be stronger. And I think that's so important because we look at it as a negative thing, but it really is this transformative thing that, with your cycle, it's not like day one, you can have a baby. Of course, that's possible, but it's the idea that like you're on this journey of kind of moving forward towards one day having a relationship that leads to marriage, and then you know your body's going to do amazing things. So really just starting out tracking that cycle. And then when my oldest had talked about just a future with her boyfriend and getting married and so forth, I said to her, hey, I could, how do you want to do this? Like there's so much more to this and whatnot. So one day we spent an afternoon and just kind of, I gave her like all this information I know from just all the years of practicing it and relaying how that bonds you to your spouse. How, on paper, it might feel kind of uncomfortable or awkward, but that these are the kind of conversations that are hard that you're going to have with many different things in your relationship. And just that respect for how our bodies are designed, the beauty of the complementarity. So, honestly, after we were done, she just kind of looked at me like, wow, mom, that's a lot. It's a lot of stuff. And I was like, I know, but, this is science and it's really great. And I just thought to give her that introduction to kind of help her see what's on the horizon. To a certain extent, you can't just say, every kid do this, do that at this time. I think everything needs to be tailored to every child and meeting them where they're at, giving them doses when they're ready, letting them know, like by planting that seed, that there's these different possibilities. This is like what your body can and cannot do, um, is really important. For Andy and I both, just that idea that that seed is planted is so important, because we know our children, or their brains are still developing even after adulthood.
So, what would be one practical piece of advice for couples who want to use natural family planning in their marriage, but they don't know what to expect in its practical day to day use?
To be patient. Like you have to be patient and you have to embrace it.
Yeah, I would second that patience, that it is really hard kind of getting everything going because you're balancing that with children and obligations and, trying to take your temperature, but yet you have these other demands. So it is really tough, determining abstinence and understanding where you guys can get through that in a comfortable sense. Um, I would say, though, a lot of it too is just opening that door to God's plan. And I know Andy and I had said from day one, we're like, hey, we're going to shoot for 4 kids. And there's this saying that, you tell God your plans and he'll laugh. And so since since we've gotten our 6 children and 2 in heaven, we now realize that God has the best plan. And it's just nothing we could have dreamed up, and given as much time as we can to dream, that he's always got the best plan and the most perfect plan. Even fighting through those miscarriages, we didn't have an answer. We ran a bunch of tests. One child was a second trimester loss, and it was really tough. I think NFP was helpful in that time, um, but it still just was a very trying time for us. And it matured my faith in the way of just having that constant conversation with God on just that human experience of loss and why me, but then understanding there's a huge, beautiful, big plan with this that I could never have dreamed of. Um, and that led me to know how to look at life in general. That, every pregnancy I thought, oh, I'm so excited. Like, please, Lord, give me a healthy child. And then as I got more mature in my faith with having pregnancies, I thought, okay, Lord, um, a healthy child, but, give me a child that's alive, like a live birth and a healthy child. And then it came to thank you for the gift of life this day. So if this child does not make it tomorrow, like, thank you that I am that child's mother and I held that child perfectly in my womb, and he knew the love of God. He or she knew the love of God just from my body as God designed it. And so the entire life of that child was knowing the love of God and whatever your will is for us. Um, so it was a really difficult time, but I understood that um, maybe I won't know on this side of what is to come or what is the reasoning, but that just to be more bonded with what is the will of God for me this day.
All righty. Well, thank you, Briana and Andrew, for being on the PeakDay podcast. We appreciate your time so much. Thanks.
Thanks, Martha.
Thanks,
All right.
Martha.